In the year 2020 of the Common Era, it is pretty cringy to go around quoting certain scientists, like one Neil deGrasse Tyson. However, I just happen to be the living embodiment of cringe, so I'm going to quote him right now. And in an interview he gave for some YouTube channel forever ago, Neil said something to the effect of, "Science is impersonal," meaning that if Einstein hadn't discovered relativity, if Newton hadn't figured out gravity, somebody else would have come along and discovered those things for them if those guys hadn't. But art absolutely is personal. And nowhere in any video game do I see that as more apparent than in Naramura's La-Mulana games, because holy crap, I really don't think anybody else could make something like this. Sure, the platforming can be challenging, and the combat can be really excruciating at times, but that's not really Naramura's, and by extension, Nigoro's claim to fame. The thing that makes their property so unique is the puzzle logic, which really should be called puzzle illogic, because you can call it obtuse, obscure, opaque, impenetrable, non-intuitive, but at the end of the day, the English language just does not have sufficient modifiers to aptly describe what it feels like to play one of these games. The closest I can get to describing the experience is a metaphor. It feels like there's a grade school-aged child standing next to me while I play this game, and the kid is constantly throwing insults at me, calling me a stupid poo-poo head, and other things that insinuate that I'm really, really dumb and shouldn't be playing this game, and I should just give up and go take on another hobby like crochet or street walking, I don't know. If Van Gogh had never painted The Starry Night, nobody would have painted The Starry Night. Only the artist himself could have made that. Maybe we'd get another painting later on, which bore the name The Starry Night, but it wouldn't be the same painting. Only Van Gogh could have made that. If Munch had not painted The Scream, then we would never have had The Scream, the painting that we today call The Scream. Maybe another painting later on would have borne that name, but not the composition that we know. And by that same token, nobody but Naramura could make a La-Mulana game. And nobody but Naramura could give you the experience of feeling like there's a child standing there insulting your intelligence while you play. I realized that was the intention. He's made something that's really targeted for a very special and borderline psychotic style of video game player, which I am, guilty as charged, and he succeeds. He succeeds with flying colors. This makes La-Mulana games really fun to play on subsequent playthroughs, but the first playthrough is not fun. We shouldn't kid ourselves. It's not fun. It's painful. It's difficult, exacting work. Your first playthrough is labor. It's not fun. It's not playtime. But after beating it that first time, it's all gravy. It's all sweet, slippery gravy. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. Now, let's get down to business. I've got 9 hours of gameplay footage I need to edit through here. What follows is a series of highlights, where I am playing a little bit, getting stuck, asking GMA for help. He gives me a hint. Playing a little bit, getting stuck, asking GMA for help. So we're just going to cover the highlights here, because there's just so much time I spent on this. All thanks to GMA for being patient, and for giving me hints that let me use my own intelligence towards solving a puzzle, because if I didn't get hints from a well-meaning friend, then I would just be going to a wiki for every single step of progress. So thank you, GMA. Now let's start covering what happened. First of all, GMA mentioned that I had missed a treasure in the Malice Palace after defeating Echidna there. And I had no clue where to look, because I already found that software that was hidden in the wall. So he said, okay, here's a hint, it's not on the map. So I'm like, oh, okay, that means I need to go rubbing my face across the entire periphery of this level and see if I can find a destructible wall or a hidden wall. And so I did, right here. Just a whole extra room. The means of getting up to get the treasure is not really a puzzle. It's just more of an elevator that can crush you if you stand on it too long. And then you get this Nemean lion fur coat vest thing, which serves the same function as the fairy vest in the first game, I guess. It reduces your damage by half. So thank God I now effectively have a doubled health bar. I could definitely use it. Quite randomly, I ended up back in the Ancient Chaos and came across a door that now opened because I had beaten Echidna. The door took me back to the shrine. And in the shrine, I remember this place being themed very heavily on destructible walls and destructible ceilings and floors. So I was testing everything and found a destructible ceiling. And then this opened up a door to get me to a mid-boss where everything starts exploding! And I died very quickly. GMA said, use the Egg of Creation in this room to clear the gas so that the explosive attacks of this mid-boss don't keep blowing your face off. I have no idea why the Egg of Creation clears the gas in the room. And at this point, I'm really just past the point of caring. I really don't give a crap if any of the puzzles in this game make sense or not. This mid-boss Belial is pretty straightforward. It just runs back and forth across the arena while tossing out little pieces of explosive that you have to learn how to dodge. It took me a minute to get the pattern down, but I ended up just shooting it in the head over and over again until it dies, which is becoming quite the strategy that I'm leaning into because I don't know what I'm doing. Chakrams are valuable. And for defeating Belial, you get this item, the Power Band, which doesn't look like something you would call a power band at all. Like, if I hear those words, I think of like a bracelet or a wristband or something that makes you hit harder, but this looks like a ceremonial dagger that should be hidden away in the catacombs underneath the Vatican. And it directs the lightning bolts of Mjolnir more accurately, so you can hit enemies or puzzle item statue things that you need to be very accurate to hit. I had only activated one of those statues in the Dark Star-Lord's mausoleum, and you could only do that by doing it at point-blank range. But I remembered that there was another hammer statue, a Mjolnir statue, kind of hidden up in the wall here in the Doom area of the underworld. So, pew pew. And that lets you get this. Now, there was a La-Mulana 1 software that you could get in the first game, too, and it had a similar description, Naguro's full-length game, you're playing it right now, blah blah. What is being implied with this, though, exactly? Lumisa just acquired a piece of software that she herself is in. Is this an affirmation of the holographic principle? Like, is Naramura saying that, yeah, we're all just spread over the edge of the universe as two-dimensional images? Man. I wish anything ever made sense. With that, I was out of leads again, so I decided to start randomly wandering around. I found myself back at the Typhon computer in the Heaven's Labyrinth. And I accidentally kind of convinced it to destroy itself, which I guess is a necessary sequencing action after you beat Echidna. But this didn't seem to have any further effect that I could immediately see, so I moved on. So there's that demonic Norwegian squirrel thing that's been heckling me over and over as a mid-boss in this game, Ratatoskr. GMA tells me there's one encounter with Ratatoskr that I'm missing, and I need to more thoroughly explore the underworld. So I spent some more time rubbing my face on the wall in this area, where I was thoroughly stopped before in the room with the crushy arms and the crushy door. Bam! And I was just stuck. I'm not getting anywhere here. So GMA told me, oh yeah, you need another entrance into the underworld. Go search the Icefire Treetop more thoroughly. I came across some of Lameza's research papers again, and this is just lore, oh my, what a bore. The gist of it is that Eglana is a clone of La-Mulana, so it is a child, but like asexual reproduction of alien god beast women, I guess? We'll figure this all out later. I came across this tablet again, and in combination with GMA's direction, it clicked. Oh. The two lights that illuminate night and day, so I need to use the sun and the moon mantras on some screen in the Icefire Treetop. So a twisting swelter sounds like a lava pit, which there are many of in the Icefire Treetop. But a twisting swelter, I don't remember seeing any of the lava pits twist or swirl or do like a Coriolis pattern. So, time to do the tried and true brute forcing and using these two mantras on every screen of this map. Now, why did that work? That pit was not twisting. I suppose I could have taken it as a hint that the prayer point is right next to it, which implies that it would be like a save point for some kind of difficult encounter or entering some difficult area. But yeah, brute forced it. Have no idea why that pit was any specialer than any of the rest of them. Whatever, who cares? No one cares. Do you care? I don't care. No one cares. So, the technicalities of this mid-boss. The head is the weak point, and weirdly, randomly, projectile weapons don't work. Melee only will hurt it. Even the martial fairy, the weapons fairy that I brought in with me the first time, she tried her best, but she couldn't hurt this thing either. So I had to get up close and personal and slash or whip the crap out of it. So those red arcs are actual lava plumes. Touching them will damage you just as if you were in lava, which, because of my equipment, isn't a big deal, but more importantly, touching them will slow you down and restrict your movement just as if you were in lava, and that turns out to be the bigger problem, because that leaves you open for the boss to nail you with those fireballs. Fare thee well, Vidofnir. We didn't even want to know you. At this point, my perpetual sense of self-loathing eased off a bit because I was finally making progress. Oh, yeah. I've got to spend myself down to 1G and then just give him my last unit of money. I could use that dude in the Ancient Chaos who takes all your money from you, but why do that when you can just go somewhere to buy tons of ammo and restock your ammo reserves? That sounds smarter to me. Now, it probably isn't fruitful for me to just show you all the time that I wandered around randomly. Again, this is just supposed to be a highlights reel. So, we should discuss the underlying puzzles. I don't know if we should use the plural for that place, puzzle or puzzles, about the two halves of the eternal prison, the underworld, doom and gloom, evil sad times, give up all hope, succumb to despair, mwahaha. There, I've only got 1G now, are you happy? So this place is really confusing. I ended up wandering around a lot. Sometimes you'll walk into a door where the eyes on either side of the door are glowing green. And... what? I just paused here for a second because... what the hell have I gotten myself into? She perfectly, exactly mimics my movements. Like, it's not even possible to hurt her with my weapons without being hurt myself. So, I experimented with some things, and I noticed that there's one way in which she does not mimic you perfectly. She doesn't have your non-weapon usable inventory. Like, you can see me testing the Beharet here, and she doesn't have it. So it made me realize, wait, I've got something that can damage her that she doesn't have, and I just got an item that lets it be aimed accurately. And that was the solution, which, yes, I did figure that one out on my own, but I don't feel like patting myself on the back about it. I've gotten too much help otherwise. Oh yeah, and there was another fairy guild guy that I had to give 400 G to in order to free the last fairy. The key fairy, the one I didn't have yet. So I got this sweet little portrait art of her, and I'm like, aw, she's pretty. I bet she's really nice. Oh. She stuck with me until I came to this room and showed me what is a secret wall to destroy, I guess. But I tried it with my normal weapons, and bounce, bounce, bounce made me realize, oh yeah, I don't have bombs yet. And I remember bombs in the first game were necessary for opening some otherwise indestructible walls. One thing I learned in school is that petrified women are notorious audiophiles. So upon talking to this statue lady, she says, oh, I want to listen to music again. And I thought, well, I've got a harp, but it is broken and doesn't work. Although I do have a music playing app on my tablet. So I open up the media player and just run through every song and play it briefly. I don't know which particular tune she was talking about, but I don't care. Just brute force it again. And it made her so happy that she just effervesced away, like you do when you hear a nostalgic piece of music. I don't even recall what combination of mantras I had equipped at this point. I'm sure it was on some tablet somewhere, maybe one of the tablets nearby, but I didn't consciously realize exactly which combination I had. I don't know why it worked. And again, I don't care. It solved it, made the dog run forward, and it opened up a passage down below. But before going down, I talked to this guy who said some words at my face. More importantly, I finally found Ratatoskr again. And holy crap! His weapons are a lot more dangerous than before. Yeah, no big surprise. I got my ass kicked here, so let's just skip ahead. I was not in the mood for Ratatouille's shenanigans here, so I just went out and got some bullets. If La-Mulana has taught me anything, it's that if you ever encounter an ancient horror of the old world, just shoot it in the head over and over until it dies. Now, GMA pointed out to me that the mantras that I had been collecting all are supposed to have secondary meanings, which actually show in your tablet if you look at them. And I didn't know any of the secondary meanings yet. So he said, you gotta find an NPC who can identify the secondary meaning of a mantra. And this is an NPC who speaks to you only when time is stopped. Now, I thought about that for a bit, and realized there's only one NPC I had seen that hadn't spoken to me while time was active, so I went over to see what would happen if I executed the Lamp of Time immediately outside of his door. The end result is this, all of my mantras doubly identified. Heaven, earth, sun, moon, sea, fire, and wind also mean roof, road, eternity, missing, wall, tremor, and scream. So this means the incredibly thick puzzles mentioning words to incant in different places can now use multiple words to refer to a single mantra. It's like this game is a Rubik's Cube of Rubik's Cubes. Now, speaking of Rubik's Hypercubes, GMA was nice and simply outlined a puzzle for me in its entirety without making me go around and assemble the hints from tablets and such. I'm just going to recite here what it was he shared with me. Don't let the squirrel Ratatoskr get away. No place it visits is to be missing. The foul words of the black dragon Nidhogg that the water has run out shall reach Hrothgar, that's the name of a mid-boss, I don't know how to say it properly, in the treetops. That was the hint. So, I don't know how many pounds of weed people had to smoke, or how many years of your life you had to whittle away on this to figure out what the hell this puzzle is talking about, but I'll show you me kind of stumbling into the first step of it. Now, I could tell from GMA's quote that the word missing meant that I needed to use the moon mantra somewhere. And I later understood that you have to go to all the rooms where you fought Ratatoskr and use the moon mantra there. But when I first saw this sigil of light depicting Ratatoskr over Skuld's junk, I was completely befuddled. And I felt like saying to Naramura and/or Nigoro, I have no idea what you're trying to convey with this visual information here. You might as well have a Rosetta Stone that has on it only Sanskrit, Ancient Greek, and an alien language from beyond the stars and expect me to know what it's talking about. I was just completely perplexed. Perplexed and overwhelmed, and I'm like, this is beyond me. I'm so thoroughly defeated here. I'm sorry to come across as so negative, but I am a negative person. Or I just feel frequently overwhelmed by the challenges that I undertake. It's called being alive in this world, and video games like this don't help. Before going on to find the rest of those light sigils of Ratatoskr, I randomly returned to this room, completely lost, not knowing what to do, and just randomly stumbled into something. Why did the moon mantra work there? I don't know. Lets you go down. What are you doing here? My dad killed you years ago. Oh, that's right. This is the underworld. So if a giant were to die, it's maybe plausible to see Sakit here, of all places. Anyway, hi, dude. I understand you're an old friend of my dad's. So I need to get him some liquor, which I don't even have the ability to get yet. GMA said I needed some more mantras. So I went looking for more mantras. One screen below and to the right of this ferry point that I uncovered in the underworld was a weapons chest, and I had to think that the only weapon I hadn't gotten yet was bombs. Now, I didn't know how to open the weapons chest yet, but because I had just gotten the key fairy recently, I thought that might be worth a try. And yeah, she might be rude and foul-mouthed, but she did do me a valuable service here, so thank you, Key Fairy. Next time I meet you, I'll scrub your mouth out with soap. That let me open up this tile right here. And it gave me a piece of software. Then here was a mantra. And here was another mantra. Mother and son. Now, completely fair disclosure, I didn't find those, honestly. I looked them up on a wiki. I would never, ever find them honestly. My temporally stuck friend was kind enough to give me the second meaning of both mantras, but it turns out I can't even use them yet. This is what you get for looking up stuff on a wiki. You find things inorganically out of order, and you deeply, deeply regret it. So instead, better to just continue tagging the remaining Ratatoskr rooms. Here they are quickly. So that was all of them. This is meant to be a solution to a puzzle, but I had no idea what. Oh yeah, and there was that very first time you encountered Ratatoskr in the old ruins of the Mausoleum of the Giants. But that time doesn't count, for some reason, and isn't necessary to solve the puzzle. Thanks. The reason for this puzzle existing dropped on me like a sack of crap from the sky. And I got to meet the true form of Ratatoskr, let's just call him Hasselhoff Graveler. Quite obviously, I did not succeed this first attempt. So we'll just skip to the one where I finally managed to pull the lead out and jam the lead in, jam it in really hard. The tricky part is that the boss here will spend most of the fight flying around in the top half of the screen out of your reach. But his health bar isn't that big. So if you bring in a health fairy to help soak up some of the hits you take, you can whittle him down with flares while he's flying around, and then do the rest with melee up close when he dives at you. Oh yeah, and randomly I found another crystal skull. Yay. Now, you remember when I first set foot in the Eternal Prison, the Doom side, I thought, oh, it just sealed off my grail when I walked in here, which tells me that I'm going to be going through like a linear gauntlet of probably some extremely difficult platforming, and every time I go through one of these doors, it'll lock off a different piece of my equipment. I was only about 25% correct. It's not a linear gauntlet of difficult platforming. There's nothing linear about this nonsense. You are supposed to go through the doors in a certain order, which requires you to take a certain path, and every time you go through a door, yes, it does lock off a certain piece of your equipment, but you could take an incorrect path incredibly easily. It took a lot of trial and error for me to get most of the sequence correct. In the end, GMA had to give me a final push. So rather than showing you the chunks of my life that I flushed down the drain by brute forcing my way into the proper sequence, I'll just show you the correct pathing that I eventually got into. And then things finally started getting fun again. So first you lose your grail. As a side note, the level design of the Eternal Prison is pretty cleverly designed around the order in which you're supposed to lose your equipment. You'll see what I mean. Then you lose the ninja grapple. Then you lose the Gale Fibula. Then the clay doll armor. Then the double jump feather. Now here I felt like I was at a bit of an impasse, because I knew I needed the double jump feather to get into the next door. But after just looking around a bit, I realized that this rock next to this pillar is destroyable by bombs, which yes means that bombs are absolutely a necessary sequencing item. push the pillar over. That lets you get into this room without doing the double jump. Then you lose your anchor, which permits you to sink in water. And then it was quite clear that having the anchor on my person is the thing that was crushing me on the crushy door. Disabling the anchor in your menu didn't make a difference. And then finally I lost my gauntlet. But that is that for this puzzle. Finally, it's solved. And I was able to climb down to the tablet and save. Now, I remember hearing a chime when I solved the puzzle, so I thought, okay, now the crushy arms must no longer be working. Oh. And Jime said, UD, you blockhead, read the tablet that you just saved at. I was like, oh, okay. And that opened up a path, letting me walk right below the crushy arms. And then finally, I made it to the big lady I saw from up above before. Hell, spelled with one L, not two, the current ruler of the underworld. Now, when she gave me these dialogue choices, I stopped here and spoke to GMA. And I'm like, I really want to choose, I want to kick your ass. I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated, I've spent forever wandering around this catacomb. I want to kick your ass. Can I say that? GMA says, yeah, you can choose that, but just don't save. You still have your equipment locked, man. I'm like, oh, yeah, duh, which is going to make it pretty hard to fight her, but I still want to try it just for fun. So if you wanted to check this place out, I think she murders you immediately. Although if you choose I'm leaving, it lets you go back to the surface and unlocks all your equipment. But then you could warp right back into the Grail Point next to her, and without any of your equipment locked. So I did take an attempt on her with my equipment locked, and even though that didn't go so well, I did get a very pleasant surprise. This song spoke volumes to me in the first couple of bars. The name of this tune is The Last Guardian, Hell's boss fight theme. And if you haven't heard this song already, it probably sounds pretty familiar thematically. So you'll see why in a moment, but this music combined with the actual mechanics of the boss fight make this boss basically Baphomet 2.0. This song is amazing and has like the same rolling, melodious, despair-filled Carnival of the Damned vibe to it that Sabat did in the first game. I frickin' love this song. And I didn't love the boss fight as much because it actually feels harder than Baphomet in the first game. Ugh, yeah, it gets pretty crazy. So we'll do the successful attempt with my equipment unlocked. I think it was like attempt number 10. Here we go. The only reason I was able to get this done in a mere 10 attempts is because I used every advantage I could scrounge up, and you'll see why. Come into the fight with a healing fairy, and I have my bombs ready to beat the crap out of her passive first phase. Then use my gun to beat the crap out of her second phase as quickly as I can. She controls a shockingly large amount of the boss arena at any one time. Her attacks only happen at certain angles, and her movement is somewhat predictable, but good lord. Trying to position yourself properly with her attacks and all the platforms that are trying to crush you against the ceiling, it ain't easy. But here's what I meant. A feminine boss wielding a spear with lasers and the Carnival of the Damned soundtrack. This is definitely a love letter to Baphomet. Right there, I was like, oh crap, that was too easy. I shouldn't have used the gun. But no, that's just when things got real. Look at this ridiculousness. She just floods the whole arena with projectile spam and bodies you up and down like you're a ragdoll. But again, the moral of La-Mulana is that all the powers of the ancient world mean nothing against modern explosives, like the kind in the detonation caps of your bullets and your bombs. And that is more than enough for now. Thank you for sticking with me this far.